Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. So the market's been on a tear for quite a while, actually longer than it's easy to remember. And I'll get to that in a minute. But, we've seen something happen in the last month, let's say, where a lot of prices have kind of trended sideways. Now, not everything, of course. And I'm going to really break the market down into three major portions. The first one being Magic collector boxes. The thing that we have to really keep in mind with Magic in general and collector boxes specifically is that we have been in a bull market for these products for 2 years now, a little over 2 years. And it was a little difficult to realize we were in a bull market at first because there was still so much inventory from the overprinted 21 and 22 era bogging us down all throughout 23 and into the early part of 24. And it really wasn't until March, April, May kind of time frame of 2024 when boxes really tightened up and we saw the price rises off of the back of the very bottom of the market on Black Friday 23. And we started to realize, things have changed. And then we were able to look backwards and say, it was really the beginning of 23, changes in collector box print runs, reinsertion of value, and on, that had begun the Magic bull market. And so because of all of that inventory that was still hanging around from the 21 and 22 era, we didn't even realize we were in a bull market until we could clean out enough of that inventory in the first part of 24. And the point of all of that history is that we've been in a bull market for Magic for 2 years now. And we've seen a lot of big gains on a lot of collector boxes. We've seen a lot of those Kaldheim, Infinity, a lot of those unloved 21 and 22 era boxes come up a ton. Both of those came up 50% in a 1 year time frame over 2024. And so what we've seen in the last month, though, is just trending sideways on a lot of those kind of products. Kaldheim and Infinity, Dominaria United, Dominaria Remastered, Ravnica Remastered, all of those have just been trending sideways. Now, a very small number have still marched up. Things like Assassin's Creed, March of the Machine, Doctor Who, those are still gaining value over the last, say, month to 6 weeks. We have to be kind of squishy with the time frames because not every product moves in lockstep in the market all the time. But those have been going sideways. The same with Fallout. We've seen things like Lord of the Rings Special Edition that peaked at 1,600 last fall and has come down to about 1,400 with scores and scores of boxes coming out of the closet and getting onto the market to lock in their profit. And so when we look at things more recently, like Innistrad Remastered collectors peaked at, was it 340? And now they're down to about 280. And Aetherdrift peaked at 280, and now it's down to about 230. So some of those things have pulled back. The market is taking a breather, and it's consolidating. And, it's important to understand that when markets have a long period of very fast increases in prices, it can't go on forever. And what happens is some buyers start to get exhausted, and overall the prices can't keep rising. Now, there may be enough buyers in the market to sustain the prices. There may not be so few buyers left with money to spend that the prices start to fall. But what can happen is that those buyers who are continuing to sustain the market, they may get exhausted themselves, and then prices can fall. Or you can hit a situation where more of the buyers come back into the market, more buyers secure additional capital, or new buyers come into the market and the market goes up again. And because it trended sideways for a little while, the price memory is not so fresh for everyone. And so they feel like it's a good deal to go ahead and buy in at these current prices. And we're kind of in that stagnating period right now for Magic where we're not quite sure, is this going to break higher or is it going to break lower? When it gets done trending sideways here, and the whole market for Magic collector boxes is generally trending sideways. When it gets done doing that, which way is it going to break? And the kind of uncomfortable answer is we don't know, because it depends on the aggregate behavior of all the buyers. Are they going to step in, pour more money in, continue pouring ever greater amounts of money in and drive the market higher? Or are they going to step back, the ones that are still buying right now also step back, and then prices will start to fall? And we really can't look at, I think, the Final Fantasy collector boxes. Those are still way too early. I think they just got listed on TCG Player in the last week. So don't read too much into the prices of those, even though, yes, I do expect that to be a crazy product with unbelievable prices. But, will it stay at the current high 600, low 700 price point? I don't know. I tend to doubt it because we're at the very beginning of the TCG expansion life cycle for that product. And this is the part where, in retrospect, you almost always see a drop off a cliff in price. Now, the problem for this product is when it started at 700, the drop off a cliff in price may only get down to something like 400 by release day. So it's hard to take that as much of an indicator yet because it's still so early in its lifetime, and we don't have any indications yet on what the print runs will look like for it, except for past experience of Universes Beyond collector boxes. So Magic is trending sideways, but it's kind of at the apex of this 2-year-long bull market. And so, as I always say, if I have to take an up-down bet, I have to pick one side or the other with no hedging, I would say we're probably going to go down from here a bit. Now, again, you get into questions of how far, how long, which products, all the products, just some of the products. I don't have a crystal ball any more than any of the rest of you do, but what I've learned from many decades in the stock market and now several years here in the TCG market is that your best bet is to just continue steadily buying, because these are scarce collectibles that people destroy for fun. And on the long term, between Magic and Pokemon, you're looking at 15 to 25 to 35% returns product to product. And so it's not too bad, even if you buy at a little bit higher price than maybe you could have in the future. Well, you didn't know that at the point that you bought. So the other market segments that we can talk about, the first is Sword and Shield era Pokemon. And of course, those went on a tremendous tear in 2024. A lot of the final reserve stock of those products dried up, and just in the last few weeks, we've finally seen Battle Styles go out of stock on Pokemon Center. We saw Vivid Voltage go out of stock a few weeks before that, and several weeks before that, we saw Silver Tempest go out of stock. Silver Tempest, since it's gone out of stock on Pokemon Center, is up almost 50%. And that's only been about 2 months. I'll have update videos on those when we get to the 3-month point. I've already put those on the Kanban board. So we'll take closer looks at those in the future when we get to those points. The rest of Sword and Shield era Pokemon, and mostly I just go by the booster box prices. That's what I check from day to day, just to kind of keep my mental picture of the market fresh. Those have trended sideways and downwards in the last about 2 months. Now, most of those Sword and Shield era products, they saw 50, 100, 200, 300% gains in the previous year. And they've given back 5 to 10 to 20% on some of them in the last couple of months. So again, that's the kind of breather you expect the market to take when you have very, very steep price ascents in short periods of time. You expect people to be lured to take their boxes out of the closet, put them onto the market, and capture those very high marginal increases in price over small marginal holding periods. It makes a lot of sense for them to do that. And we're seeing those kind of 5, 10, 20% pullbacks that we would expect to have after some of these products tripled in 2024. So the third market segment that we're seeing is Scarlet and Violet era Pokemon. Now, what's happening over there is different because a number of those sets are still in their in-print lifetime. And we've seen things like Surging Sparks is, about $250 market price. What was the number 7, the one before that? Twilight Masquerade. Twilight Masquerade's gone up over $200 market price. And a lot of the early Scarlet and Violet era boxes have pushed up into the high 100s and low 200s. Things like Scarlet and Violet Base, Obsidian Flame, Paldea Evolved, those kind of things. a lot of these boxes are still in the period of time when Pokemon Center really does not like to see them being that expensive. And that's a second pressure that is not on Magic collector boxes or on Sword and Shield era Pokemon. All of those are out of print. And so Scarlet and Violet has the additional input into its possible future price that it can be reprinted. And I expect a lot of those are going to get reprinted and they're going to come down modestly. I don't think any of them is going to crash to $80. I don't think we're going to see that this cycle. But will they pull back $20, $30, $50 a box? Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. I think a lot of them are going to get reprints because Pokemon USA doesn't really like it when people are throwing elbows in each other's face at Costco to grab a box with 10 booster packs in it. You know, that's not a situation that they like, and they literally own a printing company. So we're going to get some relief on those. How much? I don't really know. But the thing is, a lot of the Pokemon buyers are starting to get exhausted. And if you go onto the Pokemon TCG subreddit, you can read about a lot of them saying that, you know, the prices have gotten too expensive. We've gotten back to every third comment is about scalpers, about how we need to review bomb stores that won't sell to you at hundreds of dollars under market price, things like that. And so they're getting to the point where they're just not willing to pay the money. Maybe they're not capable, or they're just not willing. In some cases, they can't even find the product because all the big box stores and all the card stores are out or nearly out of product. So all three of those markets are really trending sideways right now. And what we see over the next, say, 2 to 3 months, whether they break out to the upside or they start to break out to the downside, is going to depend on several things. It depends on whether Scarlet and Violet gets a whole lot of reprints or just a small amount of reprints. Whether some Magic boxes really amp up the print run, print into the hype. You know, WotC will probably at some point give in to the greed and just absolutely print into the hype of the boxes and kill collector boxes again, and we'll start another cycle. And the reality is they've kept dumping collector boxes on Amazon. They've never stopped. They slightly changed the way that they dump the collector boxes on Amazon. They will now price them anywhere from about $40, $50, $70, sometimes $100 below the prevailing market price. So that to the buyers who are paying attention, that is the only place you would even think to buy them. So they undercut the entire retail market and thus the distribution system also. So when they see that they can do that, they can go and they can dump, say, a popular collector box at $50 under the market price, and it's still $50, $60, $70 higher than the wholesale price, and thus still another $100 higher than what the wholesalers were paying WotC. Well, shoot, yeah, they're going to be excited to do that. And at some point, we should expect that they're going to massively overprint some collector boxes, hold back supply, and sell them on Amazon, dumping them there and undercutting the market. In fact, maybe that's what we've seen with Lost Caverns of Ixalan for the last 6 months. They've been dumping Lost Caverns of Ixalan collector boxes on the market on Amazon very heavily for 6 months. They've driven the price from about $340 down to about $300. The market price, that is. So to an extent, we could see some wider macroeconomic things come into play here. I don't have strong opinions on those yet. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of writers say if you go and you just browse some articles on Seeking Alpha, you'll see a lot of writers saying that the market's hit its top, the S&P needs a giant pullback, or that, you know, some of the crazier ones will say we're headed into a depression. Unlikely. But the reality is that a person's ability to spend a lot of money on Magic collector boxes and Pokemon and Sword and Shield era Pokemon is going to be dependent on how much extra cash they have at the end of the month after inflation takes its bite, after bills and insurance and everything else take their bites. So I don't have the crystal ball, but again, if I have to take an up down on these various Pokemon markets, of course I think Sword and Shield is headed higher over the next couple of months. Again, it's been out of print for 2 years now. Sword and Shield boxes are out of stock on Pokemon Center, and people destroy them for fun. So every day the Sword and Shield inventory in the world gets smaller and smaller. I think those are going higher after they finish this short breather. I don't think they're going to give up another 20%. And most of them have not given up 20% yet. They've given up closer to 5 or 10% after having, some of them, tripled last year. When it comes to Scarlet and Violet era, I think we're going to see a pretty decent pullback. And again, like I said with Magic earlier in this video, I think we see some pullback just by virtue that we've been in a strong bull market for 2 years now. A lot of these boxes have recovered nicely if they were 21 or 22 era boxes, and the boxes since then have all performed very well with the exception of Outlaws and Murders. It's just Outlaws and Murders, isn't it? Yeah. So don't change your plans. You know, the thing that works best on the long timeline for investing is to be unemotional, to have a good plan, and to follow it without deviation. Continue buying the same amount that you buy of every expansion, and then where you have some extra money to put towards other products, look for great products at a good price, like I always do. So, I think the markets are slightly exhausted, and the reality of Sword and Shield is they're not making it anymore, and it's just going to go up over the long timeline. And again, like any other market, there will be bumps in the road, there will be pullbacks, there will be recessions, there will be things like that. But when you zoom out on the long timeline, everything we've seen from years of studying Pokemon is that 20, 30, sometimes 40% compound annual growth rates is just what Pokemon does on the long timeline. Magic, we're probably due for a pullback. Now, will it be as apocalyptic as 21 and 22? Ooh, I hope not. I wish I could say that WotC learned its lesson, but the reality is, you know, they kicked out Cynthia Williams and they replaced her with someone else, and, well, that someone else will have their time to be an absolute idiot too. Give them time. Have faith. So, keep on putting back your normal positions, and be ready to strike when the iron is hot for great assets at a good price. So I ran the sealed sale number 11 for my patrons several nights ago. It went really well. All the boxes got shipped out. And sealed sale number 12 should be coming in about a week and a half. Sign up for the Patreon if you want to get in on those. And I'm not quite sure what the product will be yet. I have several things in mind, but I'm just kind of waiting to see how things go and what I decide to sell. So let me know what you think, everybody. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.